Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Crash and today I have a review for you guys. Now, before we get into that, I just wanted to say that you may have read this review. I've been writing reviews on AniList for the past year and that was a bit of a prologue to this channel. I'll leave a link on the description to all of them if you're curious, but I'm going to put my favorites in this video format, with a few retweaks where needed. But yeah, this review was written all the way back in January of 2020, so let's get on with it. There is this small hill I live in and will probably die too. It's the hill of people who like Bakuman more than Death Note. It's a very small hill that's constantly under attack by other people because they like Death Note, and because of that one dude that keeps screaming, Death Note sucks. We're sorry about that dude, he just gets off on that. Death Note is a monumental work though. It serves as a perfect balance between mainstream and non-mainstream. It's a bold manga to have in Shonen Jump, being all about mental games and introducing the villain as your main character. It's perfect because it can be enjoyed by casual readers, newcomers and veterans alike. So it's only natural that the people were hyped to know that the new work from the duo would come out in 2009. Bakuman at first glance doesn't seem to have anything to do with Death Note, and admittedly it's a completely new experience, far more tame in terms of themes. But inside these pages, the men of battles do continue. Bakuman is the story of Mashiro, Takagi, Azuki and their dream. Mashiro and Takagi will one day write a manga that will be animated, and Azuki will voice the main female lead. When that happens, and only then, will Mashiro and Azuki reunite and get married. And I guess this is a perfect segue to talk about the problem in Bakuman, which is a romance. It simply isn't that interesting. Azuki and Mashiro's romance is dumb, and he's pointed out time and time again that it is that way. But it's all good and well because it is pure. They barely see each other because they want to see their dreams come true, and to the manga's credit, it does reinforce that they do love each other, and their support is shown, which helps us keep invested in them as a couple in a way that wouldn't if this wasn't the case. But the problem is that romance seems to come out of nowhere. Before the declaration of their dream, they didn't really talk, sharing only a glance or two. They didn't know each other than physically, but in their first conversation ever, they suddenly became engaged. You can't help but think that's just out of nowhere. Same with Takagi and his romantic partner, Kaya. Now, I really like Kaya. She's a great character, but she and Takagi just started dating just because. Takagi clearly doesn't care much about her in the start of their relationship, and Kaya just seems to care about being in a relationship, which seems to be a problem with the girls in this manga. Their motivation seems to be quite childish when compared to the male counterparts. Kaya's first dream is to be a writer because Takagi is one, cool. And when she realizes that that isn't going anywhere, her dream changes to just to be there for the duo. Okay, Kiwaze's whole character arc is that all she does is to be better than Takagi, which she has a crush on, because he scores higher than her in the tests. And Yuaze is portrayed as someone who works hard and has talent, but it's kinda ruined by the fact that she does all of that to annoy her middle school crush. And then Azuki, which her dream is the most important out of all the secondary characters, since it's related to the goal of the story. In chapter 2, Takagi reveals that she only wants to be a voice actor because that's what young girls want to be like. It's a whim, like that time you looked at the moon and decided you wanted to be an astronaut, and also a dinosaur. Even side characters like the duo's eventual female assistant only talks about wanting to get married. It really hurts the portrait of the female characters, with the best written one being Haoki, which is the only one that seems to have a genuine drive to write manga. The bad thing is that these problems are full force at the start of the manga, that focus on Mashiro and Azuki romance, as well as Takagi having to choose between Iwase or Kaya, not because he loves any of them, but because he said the wrong words at the wrong time. Once that is out of the way, and the manga's attention starts to focus more on, well, manga, things do get better. One of the best things that this manga has going for it from the get-go is that it's made by Death Note's writers. It's made by someone who not only has had experience with Shonen Jump's process and editorial department, but one that had success with an unorthodox manga. Mashiro and Takagi are very clear extensions of Hobara and Hoba, even Takagi admitting to us that he isn't that good with female characters. But admitting a problem doesn't mean the readers should dismiss it. This means that we're going to experience a lot of the thought process that went into making Death Note. The manga really kicks off once we get a proper rival in the form of Eiji Nizuma, which is basically the Oda sensei of this manga, as well as being introduced to Atori, the duo's editor. It's really interesting to see them and Atori discuss manga and Shonen Jump's methods, like for example the rankings that end up becoming the focus of this manga. It's because of this aspect that I think that Bakuman was probably a much more bolder manga than Death Note. Bakuman exposes Shonen Jump a lot, and of course by being a Jump manga it probably sugarcoats it a bit, with the editorial staff of Jump being all full of great personnel with great relationships with the mangakas as long as they are respectful too. but they don't try to hide the struggles that team mangaka suffers, nor have any qualms addressing some of the problems that the system had. Not that it had much effect, since it seems the system is still very much the same in 2021. Shonen Jump can be ruthless, cancelling manga if they don't give immediate results and cancelling manga if they stop doing those results, as well as trying to convince the successful authors to work on their hit manga for as long as they are giving them money. It's something that it's not really hidden. Out of the 10 manga that started in Shonen Jump in 2019, only Yozakura Family still remains in the magazine today. This is the environment that Oba Hanobara worked in, and this is the environment that is present in Bakuman, giving it all the attention it needs, as our duo works chapter per chapter, trying their best to stay away from the bottom of the rankings, all the way while Nizuma just ranks on the top 5 immediately. It's in this phase that we start to get introduced to what will eventually be Team Fukuda, which Mashiro and Takagi are part of. And this is when the series shines the best. These characters are just great. First of all, it includes the best female character in the whole series, Haoki, but also the titular Fukuda, a pretty cool dude who writes pretty cool manga. Nakai, which to be honest is the weakest part of this team and one of the worst characters in the series, but it also has Iramaru. Iramaru is the highlight of the series, at least comedy-wise. He's an incredibly lazy bastard that only works because he needs money to survive. But he's also a genius that, despite barely trying and only having read a single issue of Jump before dabbing into manga, managed to have one of the biggest hits in the magazine. Bakuman works on the strength of its core cast and their friendships and rivalries, and how each of them works hard and thinks of ways to overcome the others. From doing short arcs that end at crucial period of time, to introducing new rivals and villains, to using the color pages to their advantage, each chapter is full of information about how mangaka's train of thought works, week to week, chapter to chapter, series to series. It's a delight to see the duo evolve too. While at first the idea of a mainstream manga and a giant hit seems impossible, with each one-shot and series that they do, they perfect different parts that will eventually help them reach that final work. A final work that seems too similar to Death Note concept-wise, which in one hand, it does seem self-congratulating that this is the work that takes Shonen Jump by storm. On the other, it's really fulfilling to finally see them write the kind of work that they've tried to write since the start of the series. One thing worth noticing about this part, and maybe it's just me reading too much into it, but there's a couple of chapters dedicated to the fact that the editors want to continue that work due to its fame, despite the fact that the authors already have the finale in mind, which makes me wonder if that happened with Death Note as well. And about the ending, one memory that I have reading this back when it was being released was being in college and opening my manga reader and seeing that Bakuman chapter 176 end, and me and my colleague audibly gasping, which causes the teacher to look at us. I wasn't really expecting to end there, and I got in my head that the ending had been rushed and it came out of nowhere, but rereading it, this is totally not the case. The last 2 volumes are all building up to the finale of the series. I simply wanted more of it. All in all, Bakuman has some flaws with the female characters and the romance part of it, but that doesn't really ruin the enjoyment, since it's not the biggest portion of the manga. Plus, as the manga advances, those elements start improving as well. If you're a manga fan, and if you're a Shonen Jump fan, then this is something that you should read. It's probably not the most accurate in some regards, but it does give you a very interesting insight to how a lot of things work, both in Shonen Jump as well as inside a mangaka's head. My final score is a 9 out of 10. And if you like this review and you want to see more content like this, please let me know. And if you watched it till here, thank you very much, and I'll see you next video.